You're listening to Real Crime, the Movie Sleuth podcast.
111. 111. 111.
You're showing off your talent tonight, huh?
111. 111. I can't do it anymore. That's ridiculous. Hi, guys. This
Hi.
is... Hi.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is the Real Crime Podcast, and this is episode number 111.
111.
111.
111. 111.
111.
Chris let me know right before the show because I have no sense of time. I don't know where we're at in the course of this show. So thankfully, Chris let me know that we're on episode 111.
We are. 111.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening live or if you're listening to this as an archive, thank you very much. If you haven't listened to this show before, welcome, and thank you for listening to the show now. You have 110 other shows you can listen to. That's a lot of media.
It is.
It's a lot of content.
It really is.
Yes. So thank you. We don't get to. I don't say that very often. I don't think any of us say that very often. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate that, and hope that you continue listening to this beautiful show that we do here. This and you know. While we're on that trip, just for a second, I do want to call Chris out here for a positive thing. For once in the last 20 years, I want to say something nice to you, I think. And that is, I do listen to this show every once in a while. I just tune in. I just listen. And it's one of the best sounding shows I've ever heard, honestly. And that is all because of you. You do put a lot of time into this, Chris, and I think everybody does appreciate that. If they don't say anything, everybody should give Chris a pat on his crotch as a thank you. Because this show does sound phenomenal. I love the way this show sounds, and I aspire for the stuff that I work on outside of this show to sound as good as this does. So that's, thank you, Chris. I do mean that.
Word.
Beautiful.
So enough ass kissing here.
Enough ass kissing.
Enough of you. So, okay, you dumb prick.
So
let's talk about the rest of the show.
This is episode 111 of Real Crime. First thing we're going to mention is our sponsors, as usual. Cellarman's. Cellarman's every week.
Why have you not been there?
Yeah, why haven't you gone yet?
Have you gone, Mara?
No, I haven't.
We gotta take Mara there.
No one's taking
we gotta
me
take
out
Mara
yet.
there one night and get her shit housed.
Yeah, we need
Please.
to get that stuff going over there because we had quite a few things events that we wanted to host there.
Yeah, we gotta do that. Yeah.
I think we need to get on that here pretty quick.
Yeah.
So Cellarman's, check them out. They're in Hazel Park.
Yes, right on John R. Road.
Best mead ever.
Best mead ever.
Yep. That raspberry stuff is amazing.
Fantastic beers. I mean, they're always working on something new over there. If you go on their Facebook page or any of their social media stuff, you'll always see those guys out in the back, which is where the brewery's at, and which you can see. They're happy to show you their brewery and just see those guys back there
cool.
every day working, trying new things, always working on some new beautiful bouquet for you to sample. So definitely, if you have not been to Cellarman's, you're out of your mind. You need some help. Go to Cellarman's.
Yep. And then, of course, the wonderful Flint Institute of Arts.
Yeah, I'm still living there.
Yeah?
I love it there. It's beautiful.
Well, when I went last year for their event when they were doing the glass presentation on molding glass with the big urns and all that, the kilns, I'm sorry.
The glass tables.
It was really, really cool, and the art they have on display is really quite cool.
That'd be cool. Glass blowing.
Yep.
I mean, that's not glass blowing necessarily. It's glass sculpting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But a very, very cool place to go.
Yeah.
And then, of course, projectorscreen.com. So make sure you check those guys out also.
Projectorscreen.com.
And if you want a 10% discount, email me at chris@spoilerfreemoviesleuth.com.
If you want a 20% discount, you email me at lovestospooj69. Never mind.
Loves to spooge.
I stole it from South Park. Who am I kidding? Projectorscreen.com is fantastic. Check that out for sure.
Yep. So in news this week, some pretty exciting stuff happening. They're actually making a Time Bandits TV series.
Heard about
which
that.
we announced a few months back.
Yeah.
But Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok, is going to be directing the show. So very good person to be taking this property over. Very creative person.
And that is cool.
Yeah. You got to have the right people in control of this stuff,
Yeah.
And then Captain Marvel, the fanboys lost.
good.
Really? Tell me all about this.
Captain Marvel
This
made
isn't my wheelhouse. but I'm
Captain
curious.
Marvel was huge this last weekend. It made $153 million
hear about
domestically in its opening frame.
Some ridiculous number.
Yeah, some ridiculous number, $153 million.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, now the fanboys are coming out this week and saying, oh, Disney is skewing the numbers to make it look like it did better than it actually did, which is, of course, a total lie.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
Well,
a lot
they
of...
just look dumb.
Yeah,
Are they wearing tinfoil hats also?
I believe so. So a lot of money stuff in the news this week. Alita, Battle Angel, is actually being reported now as a box office success. Initially, they said it was going to be a total flop, but it was not a flop. It actually made $382 million globally so far. Wow. So it's actually done quite well. Not very well in the U.S., but overall did very well. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And then last but not least, MoviePass, once again in the news.
Let's hear all about this.
Yeah. So they posted their losses for 2018, and those numbers were actually skewed. Initially, they reported their losses were somewhere around $250 million for 2018. The actual numbers now are being reported as, this is unreal, they lost $327 million.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, huge loss for MoviePass.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to lose. Not pocket change. So that's our news for the week. Really not much else going on.
A lot of people losing money, apparently.
Yep. So in new releases this week, we've got Captive State, which looks really, really good. And then we've got Wonder Park, which is a new animated family film. Dana went to a screening last weekend on Saturday, so we should have a review of that up in the next couple days. And then another movie called 5 Feet Apart, which I have absolutely no idea what it's about.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah. We're like 5 feet apart right now.
We should make a movie about us.
Want to huggle?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so moving on to suggested viewings.
This is going to be an interesting week. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Chris.
So myself, last week, I could not talk about this movie because of the embargo, but the movie by Netflix called Triple Frontier, which was in limited release for a week and a half in theaters, it's hitting Netflix this weekend. Fucking awesome movie.
Really?
If you like action movies or thrillers, like in the vein of Heat,
Oh, yeah.
you got to see Triple Frontier.
Okay.
There's a heist scene in this movie that literally I almost had to like stop watching. I was like literally like I found myself like on the edge of my seat about ready to fall off.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
you definitely got to see Triple Frontier. 100%. And I think it's on Netflix like Thursday.
Oh,
Thursday or Friday.
that
So
sounds cool.
Cool.
yeah,
That's on Netflix.
it'll be on Netflix.
Even
Yes.
better. There you
And
go.
it's the one I
everybody.
talked about with Pedro Pascal and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac.
Oh, man. That's a line.
Yeah, and then Garrett Hedlund is in it also. So if you're into action and you like those guys, see this movie. 100% see this movie.
Okay, cool. Mara.
Mara.
All right, I just picked this movie up on Blu-ray. It's an old one, Crime Wave. Sam Raimi's Crime Wave.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's the second movie after Evil Dead, right before Evil Dead 2. It was a failure, I guess. He hates it. It wasn't what he wanted. He wanted Bruce Campbell to star in it, but
Yeah.
they wanted to get their own guy in,
That's his
he
guy,
ended up
too.
having Bruce Campbell had a bit part in it. But I mean, watching it, it's if you like Evil Dead, you like Evil Dead 2. It's right where you want to be, right in the middle of it. It's so silly.
It is goofy.
It's like a Looney Tunes. It's like a cartoon Looney Tunes, but it's a movie.
Oh.
And I can't recommend it enough.
I can't recommend it enough.
Enough. It's just like I'm just cracking up the whole time, and it's really cool too because it's completely shot in Detroit, so you can tell they're on 75. You can see the exit to 9 Mile.
Oh, man.
I was looking at Google Maps to see what's there now, but it's right like across the street from Grand Circus Park.
Okay.
So it's so recognizable if you know Detroit.
Outstanding.
When you watch it.
I'm going to have to. I never saw that. I will have to sit down with that.
It's just slapstick.
Yeah.
Silly. The jokes are ridiculous. The way they act are just over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Campbell just can't be beat. I'm so happy he actually got in it. It would have been probably a lot better if he was the lead role.
Speaking of Bruce Campbell, I'm just going to throw this out there. You've seen Bubba Hotep, I'm sure, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's one of those ones. I mean, it was, it's one of those movies that people, not a lot of people have seen it.
Yeah.
The people that have seen it are like, it's a great flick. I love Bubba Hotep. That's one big cockroach. I mean, it's got some classic lines. Yeah, and Bruce Campbell really pulls off the Elvis thing, too.
He does.
I mean, he has that.
A lot of people have seen it.
You see, this is the crap right here.
Every week.
This is what we say every week.
I had it muted too. Sorry.
You see, no, there's no way to get around this. It's a bug.
Yeah.
It's a bug. That's a rat. Yeah. That's a bug. It's a bug, right? But no, I love Bubba Hotep. I love Bruce Campbell and anything he does. One of the funniest things, I speaking of Bruce Campbell, I have to throw this out there. Years ago when I was a bartender, I was in college, we had to take this thing called TIPS training, right? TIPS, is whatever, some stupid acronym. And it was for us, it was required by our employer to have this training. So it just teaches you how to be a proper bartender and cut people off and do all that cool stuff. So they had these, and it was sponsored by the big beer company with big B, Budweiser.
You don't want to say it?
They're rich enough. So
Budweiser,
yeah, literally. So they paid for this whole thing, which was cool. And they were part of this program was they had to show us a bunch of these instructional videos, which were great because it's like this totally quiet, serene bar, which is not ever a real life scenario. It's always chaos when you're working at a bar. And the person sitting there cleaning off this perfectly clean bar top with a towel. I'm like, no, there's shit everywhere. That's a lie. There's every fluid on there you can think of. It's disgusting. And you're trying to madly clean it up as the night goes on. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching this one scene and we're sitting there and we're watching all these hilarious scenarios. We're like, okay, this is really, somebody just falls over. Oh yeah, I guess you're cut off now. You can't drink anymore. So we're like, okay, this is dumb. So I'm watching this one scene and this person wiping down this perfectly clean bar, and all of a sudden, this guy falls over on the bar. Let me have another beer. And me and my buddy were like the guys in the back of the class goofing off the whole time. And I'm like, that's fucking Bruce Campbell. and my buddy's like, Bruce Campbell, like Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. He's like, holy shit, I love those movies. That's Bruce Campbell. He's like, oh my God, you're right. That's Bruce Campbell. So we're in the background jumping up and down. They're like, guys, can you please? We're like, but it's Bruce Campbell. And somehow I think he was having a slow time and he got some pickup work to do these instructional videos. It was super cool. Super cool to see Bruce Campbell do that. Mm-hmm. So sorry, I didn't mean to go off into the weeds.
So what's your suggested viewing?
Yeah, thank you. The weather's nice and I'm feeling a little more wound up than normal.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm enjoying. I actually went on my bicycle today. It felt good to get out and get some fresh air for a change instead of breathing furnace air. So here's the thing. And I already said, I think I mentioned last week that I saw Lords of Chaos. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
So I totally fucked that up. Okay, so forget that.
It's all right.
You know what? This weekend I spent a lot of time laying. I just wanted to rest this weekend. So when I'm in rest mode, I don't want to try to watch anything new because I want to want to concentrate on it and see what's going on. And if I'm just laying there halfway staring at my phone sometimes, which I do when I watch movies that I've seen 1,000 times because I do that. Mm-hmm. I don't do that when I watch a movie for the first time. So this was one of those weekends where this is going to be so ridiculous when I say this. I watched 3 movies this weekend and you're going to be like, oh my God, what an idiot. I watched Mandy again. I watched Arrival.
Good pick.
Arrival. And I also get ready for it. I watched Annihilation again.
Wow.
So I banged through those this weekend, and I know they're movies we've talked about. All of them we've probably given all those movies way more than 10 or 15 minutes of time on this show. But I want to stress that Annihilation for me, and I've mentioned like my way of watching movies, when I really get obsessed with a film, literally obsessed with a film, I keep watching it over and over again. I mentioned Hereditary. I've watched that movie about 30 times now.
Holy shit.
Just picking up I'm picking up all these little weird things. And Annihilation's another one of those movies too. And this happened over the weekend because as I'm watching Annihilation, and I did watch it a couple times this week. I didn't just watch it once. I watched it a couple times. There were things I was picking up on, little other cues that I missed in the previous viewings. So that is why I love that movie so much, is there's just so much density in that film. I know it's not for everybody. I know it's a little too geeky for some people, and that's cool. But for me, it's something I can really just get into the crust of and try to understand and learn all these new things about the movie that I may have not learned previously. To the point where while I'm watching it this weekend, I end up getting the entire Southern Reach trilogy, which is the books. And of course, the author is going to totally escape me because I'm an idiot. But I ended up getting all 3 of those books this week, and then I'm going to read those books now. I should have went the other way around, but you know what? I just didn't know about these stories. So I guess as far as a suggested viewing in a long form, Annihilation. I know it's been beat up and talked about a lot, but I just can't stress how great that movie is. I love that movie so much, and I just keep exploring it. And I think that's a sign of a really great movie, though, too, is something you can just keep exploring.
This is a newer. I don't know about this.
2000 It's actually 2016.
Annihilation, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got Oscar Isaac also.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac's in that.
And Natalie Portman.
Yeah. Jennifer Jason Leigh. A great cast. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, Mara, I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Wait, is it like an action film?
It's a sci-fi / horror / drama / mystery.
Okay.
I that's all I can say. And it's just super dense and super interesting, and it's a really interesting take on things, which does tie in to what our topic is this week. Because I do, and I didn't put that on my list. Somehow it ended up on the goddamn show, but I
imagine that
I didn't put it on my list because we're talking about, and you know what? We didn't get a chance to really flesh out maybe what we wanted to do with this, but that's okay. We're going to talk about disaster films this week. Right?
Yeah.
Which wears a lot of hats, I found.
It does.
Sure does, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, disaster, I think the whole subgenre of disaster movies, it's not defined by any certain thing because so many things could be disastrous. Like, I'm sure one of us is going to bring up War of the Worlds. At the core, it's an alien invasion movie, but it's still a disaster.
Right.
There's still shit happening that is disastrous.
Well, technically speaking, we could say a disaster movie. It could be a drama movie also.
It could.
I mean, you have a disaster that happens in a person's life. Like, they have a cheating spouse, right? Or something like that. To a person in a marriage, that's disastrous to them. That's a disaster. I think what the idea here of disaster, and I do say it wears a lot of hats, but I think the idea of disaster films, how we may apply it here today, is more on a physical stance, more towards, environmental disasters or
global catastrophe,
forces of nature, things like that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got to mention that this is a very complicated subject. It's not as simple as, aliens coming and blowing up buildings and stuff like that.
Right.
It's not that simple.
No, it's not, because I think there are movies that have disaster elements that aren't exactly a disaster film.
Yes.
Disaster movie. The way I looked at it, it was like, you look at the plot of the movie, how everything unfolds, is the disaster the central point of it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a foreign film called The Wave that was out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a disaster movie because there is a giant wave that comes and destroys this town. But at the core of it, it's more of a character study. The film is defined more by the characters than it is the actual major disaster that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, there
is a wide spectrum here.
Yeah. And there's the idea of potential disaster too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. And you know what? So you threw out The Wave. Is there one that you wanted to throw out there? A movie?
Right now?
Yeah, damn it.
I mean...
Okay, if you don't...
I want to save my list for...
Okay, fine. All right, that's fine. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I think, obviously there's films like Earthquake.
Yeah. Which are
the old ones from the 60s and 70s when it really hit big the first time. And then in the 90s, it kind of came back again. And you can almost say, even though Independence Day is a movie about humans battling aliens,
it's a disaster film.
It's a disaster film because cities are just decimated in that movie.
Totally,
so,
yeah. I mean, we mentioned Skyline a couple weeks ago, which, it's got its drawbacks, but that's a flat out disaster film. The whole town gets ripped apart. Everything just gets destroyed. I mean, you're watching buildings just getting knocked over by these machines and whatnot, like they're made of paper. So it's another type of disaster film, but with, the whole horror sci-fi element thrown on it. One I wanted to throw out there was from 1998, Armageddon.
That was a big one.
which was a big deal when that movie came out.
Sure was.
As far as the special effects were concerned, that movie was pretty much unmatched at the time. However, you mentioned the idea of character study. What I loved about Armageddon, and the reason I watched it a bunch of times, I really dug into that movie, is that there was just the cast was so colorful. You got Steve Buscemi, for example. You have all these really colorful characters that are a part of, my God, what's his name? My brain stopped again.
Bruce Willis.
Thank you, Bruce Willis's crew, and they're this ragtag bunch of guys who are experts in their field.
Yeah,
they're unmatched in their field. They're the greatest deep core drilling team on the planet, but as people, they're fucking disasters. They're scumbags. They're jerk-offs,
Yep.
They're roughnecks. And you hear that through the movie, like, a bunch of roughnecks. I don't want my little girl marrying a roughneck. Ben Affleck's character, of course. But they end up saving the world. And special effects-wise, completely insane. And that's one of those ones I just mentioned, though, too, where it's a potential disaster, right? The idea is if this fucking... asteroid hits the planet, it's going to wipe the planet out. Mm-hmm. It's going to kill us. So that's the thing. Like, okay, we have a potential disaster that's going to happen here, that will happen here if we don't intervene. So you get, and I mean, I did read an article just yesterday about this movie, a brief one that said, look, the science in Armageddon was bullshit. It was ridiculous.
Of course.
But that's not the point. It's a movie. It's fun.
It's entertainment.
Yeah, and watching these guys up on an asteroid trying to drill into the center of it and put a nuclear weapon in the middle. It's a crazy, insane idea. But you get to watch this cast of characters, though, interact with each other, and that's what I thought was a lot of fun. Was watching these. There was a lot of comedy in the movie, minus the Aerosmith soundtrack and the cheesy love scenes. I had to fast forward to that stuff.
That all fits
together. I
together.
couldn't stand that when I saw that in the theater.
I don't want to miss the scene.
Oh God,
I hated that
so
back
bad.
then. I still do, but especially more back in '98.
It was
more bitter.
It's cringeworthy, but I thought it was a fun movie to watch in general. It was a really cool flick, and it's a disaster movie.
I haven't seen that since '98 in the theater.
Yeah, it's a great flick.
Yeah.
I love watching that.
I used to smoke a lot of weed and watch that movie like repeatedly.
Chris, what about you?
My list is long. This one is total shitbag movie, but 2012.
Oh God.
Because, the world was going to end in 2012.
Cusack, right?
Yeah. With
they
Cusack.
had to cash in.
Yep. It's one of those movies where, they switch vehicles like every 10 minutes. Like, oh, we're in a Winnebago now.
Yeah.
Now we're in an airplane. We're going to escape the destruction of the planet. 2012 is like the epitome of disaster movies. I mean, the entire world is going to end.
Yeah.
So we got to find our way to these big-ass boats to save all of human existence. Terrible movie, but it's so much fun and so stupid. But, you actually kind of like these characters. Mm-hmm. And, so.
I think that movie does cut the mold on. I agree with that. It really does cut the mold on disaster movies. It's not a great story. I don't think it was a very good story, but it was bombastic. The special effects were off the hook for what they could do. It was completely insane. When that movie came out, it was touted like, oh, you're just going to lose your mind when you see these special effects. Yep. And that's where they put their money in, obviously. But yeah, it was a fun watch. Me and my neighbor watched it. I saw it once, and we're like, man, this movie looks really cool, but God, it's goofy. It's a disaster movie. It's a flat-out disaster movie.
Well, and the funny thing is in this movie is that I think John Cusack was like a limo driver or something.
Like
So, like, he's a limo driver, and now all of a sudden he's like, I got to save the family from the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's terrible, but it's just this wild ride.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you need, though. A movie like that can just wrap you up like a blanket.
No, it's a fun watch. Mm-hmm. That was my impression initially, and even now as we're talking about it, it's something I'm going to go back to and really. No, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's cool. It's a cool flick.
The really funny thing about disaster movies is that my daughter, when she was like 11 or 12, Bethany decided that she liked disaster movies. Yeah. And to this very day, she was like, Dad, what's that movie about, the end of the world and blah blah, like 2012. Oh yeah, I want to watch that. Oh, what's that other one about, the fault in California, like San Andreas? Oh, I'm gonna watch that. She watches disaster movies like all the time, and she'll watch them on repeat.
Yeah,
it's her thing though.
There's something about, to me, especially when I was younger, in the 80s, there was a lot of disaster movies. And I'm going to throw another one out that really hit home for me and sent me down a rabbit hole of studying volcanoes nonstop. And that was a movie called St. Helens from 1981.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really cool flick.
That was a made-for-TV
It was a made-for-TV movie. Yeah, it was originally a made-for-TV movie. And they had that sucker in circulation nonstop. But it was about the eruption of Mount St. Helens, obviously by the title. And it was about these people. Like, some people are like, we have to vacate the town. This thing's going to blow. And the story more or less was like, it's going to be fine. These scientists are all going back and forth saying, well, no, it's not going to blow up. No, it's going to blow up. Here's my readings. I'm looking at these seismic charts, and they're saying the damn thing's going to blow up. We need to get out of here. David, I think it was the guy who played the original Hulk, David Banner or Bannon or whatever his name was.
Why can't I remember his name?
You know what I'm talking about, though. That was the guy who was in the movie.
Lou Ferrigno?
No, not Lou Ferrigno. I'm sorry. Well, there's a guy who played David,
yeah.
The guy who played Bruce Banner, not
Bruce.
Hulk.
Thank you. So,
but in the TV show, he was David Banner because ABC would not let them name him Bruce Banner because they thought Bruce sounded too homosexual.
Oh, and my goodness.
That is a fact.
For real?
That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard
in my life. Ridiculous.
That is an actual fact.
Wait, what was the name too? David?
In the comic books, he's
more of a gay
he's
man's
Bruce
name.
Banner, but in the TV show, they named him David Banner because they thought it sounded gay. Yep, and it's an actual fact.
What are we talking about again?
Okay, we were talking about St. Helens.
St. Helens, yeah. All right. No, the movie's got some really interesting special effects. I mean, it's about a volcano blowing up. There's some really interesting imagery, like when the volcano does blow up. For example, there's the old man in town, I got a turd in every pocket. Something that I remember that was the first time I ever heard.
I want some bag of weed.
No, the guy, they're like, he's like, they said to him, like, you guys better get out of here. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, I guess I got a turd in every pocket. And he drives away in his truck. And I remember hearing that, when you're like 7 or 8 years old.
Somebody changed my diapers before she blows.
When you're 7 or 8 years old, you're like, what the hell does that mean? But that guy, unfortunately, meets his demise. He decided the day that he didn't give a shit. He said, this is where I live, and I don't care. And that's one of the most haunting images I remember from this movie was when the volcano went. I mean, they showed all these scenes of what it's doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things it does is it basically boils the lakes. The lakes start to boil from the lava going in, and it's causing these big waves to come up.
I'm going for a swim.
Yeah, so this guy's out there fishing on this serene lake, and all of a sudden you just see this wave of boiling water just swallow him.
Yikes.
And that's like some of the, especially when you're young.
That's hot.
Yeah. But hey. So that was, while it's, it wasn't like some special effect, like, feast for the eyes.
Yeah.
It really kind of creeped me out. Like, what the hell are these volcano things? And when you're young, you're learning stuff, right?
Right.
So that set me down a thing of like, I want to learn about volcanoes and understand how they work. So that was one of those ones. It was a made-for-TV movie, so they couldn't go too crazy. But it was to me, it's one of those ones that just kind of stuck with me as far as disaster movies are concerned.
Yeah.
Are you just waiting, Mara, for like you're just going to lay it on us like at the end?
I guess so. I don't know.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Well,
hit us, girl.
Well, so the one I thought really hard about this, the movie I'm going to mention right now, I think started as a disaster movie, but then started its completely own genre, and that's 1954 Gojira.
Yeah.
And now I've not talking about the U.S. version, Godzilla King of the Monsters or whatever it's called with Raymond Burr. I'm talking about the Japanese one, original.
Yeah.
Gojira. That movie, when you watch it for the first time, you don't even know that it's a monster causing all these things happening. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool when they finally find out, and they have to figure out pretty much how to stop him and why it's happening.
Yeah.
And it really, the time it's made, we're talking about post World War II, so it's so obviously kind of like the reaction to what really happened in Japan at the time and the destruction and seeing that and dealing with that. And I mean, the way it ends is like, okay, well, Godzilla's gone, but we need to be careful because he can come back at any time.
If we continue behaving like this, he'll return.
Yes.
Well, that leaves you hanging, obviously.
It really does. And then, of course, not only that, but we get all the wonderful Godzilla movies afterwards, all the monster movies that were born of it, which are pretty, like, different in how they play out in the ones I've seen.
Well, they didn't have so much of the like anti-war commentary.
No, not so much. And I mean, there's a lot of the like great, shots of destruction where Godzilla is just, destroying everything and making that cool noise and everything. And that's great. Like, I just love seeing that. That's
Scott, your mom is watching us.
That's so.
Oh boy.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
But that's like satisfying to watch and everything, and that's like that's why I like those movies so much. But definitely this one is more
total classic.
The more like disaster, thing where it's like things are happening all around and it's on the news and they don't know what's going on and people are here, there, and trying to come together and beautiful.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? That's a good pick too, by the way.
I'm gonna
Way
go.
To go, good job.
I think one of my favorites is The Day After Tomorrow.
Dude, yeah, it's on my list too.
Because that is another one. It's kind of like the end all be all of disaster movies. Like the world is literally ending. A series of events is happening that is just basically going to wipe out everybody. And I mean, it's just disaster defined. But I really like the acting in this movie, too. There's definitely some cheesy effects in it.
Jake Gyllenhaal is really good in this film.
He's really good in this. Yeah. Dennis Quaid plays his dad.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Dennis Quaid. Like, the man never takes a bad role. And if he does, he, still owns it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, The Day After Tomorrow, I like this one a little bit more, too, because it is kind of science-based. Mm-hmm. Like, there is real science behind
Art Bell
the things that happen in this movie.
Art Bell was really pushing this movie when it came out, and that was from 2004. I remember, listening to Art Bell, and also even George Norian, Coast to Coast. These guys were really pushing this movie hard. And, yeah, I agree with you, Chris. The movie did have some cheesy effects. However, some of the stuff, I mean, it was really scary. Because we're coming out of the winter. I hope we're coming out of the winter.
We're coming out of the winter.
We hit 47 degrees today, and it was just beautiful. But we had a couple days over the winter here, and we're all from Michigan, where there's days you walk outside and you feel like the weather's trying to kill you. Yeah. Literally trying to kill you.
Like you can't exist.
You really you really have to appreciate the power of nature and winter. And so when you watch The Day After Tomorrow and you see the effects of cold, the weather becomes its own character. Yeah. The weather is the star of the film. The ice, the cold is the star of the film. So we see some very haunting things, like when the helicopter pilots actually crash and you see them kind of go, ah! And they just freeze.
That's scary.
Fucks me up.
That's so scary.
That freaks me out, man. That is so weird. However, and I want to point this out, Chris, what this movie actually did kind of have a really great moral or story. At the end, you kind of understand what happened, why this. I don't know if you did, but at least I'll say what I took from that. Because you had the astronauts, up in space when this was happening.
Right.
And they were looking down. This was the last scene of the film. They're looking down. They're like, oh, it looks like the storm's starting to subside now. Wow, man. The earth looks so fresh and clean now. So what I took from that was the earth basically just had enough of our shit and rebooted itself.
Yeah.
It just rebooted itself. And that's kind of what I took away from that is, a story like, look, and we all know this as well as anybody does. And this is what what a lot of disaster movies, I think they're about, is the idea that, nature does rule everything. Mm-hmm. And you can't stop it. You can't stop a volcano. You can't stop a tsunami. You can't stop some superstorm that's taking temperatures down to minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't stop
Godzilla.
You can't stop Godzilla. You can't stop Godzilla. You can't stop these forces of nature. And to your point, Chris, The Day After Tomorrow brilliantly, I think, illustrated that. And it wasn't a perfect movie by any means.
No.
But it was super cool. I love watching that movie still. I love to break that out and watch it. It's a great flick.
I watched this one in the theaters like opening day because I love disaster movies.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, this is like really good. It's really good. Mm-hmm. It's dumb, but it's got some elements that are a little grating. They're a little cringy, but I think, if you get to the end, you get to the end of the adventure, you get what it's about. That's why I think the movie's so cool. It would have been better though if he played Donnie Darko in The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get some weird time travel shit going on.
Whose turn is it? We're just kind of throwing the baton around.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, how about we'll stay with the weather, I guess.
Okay.
The Perfect Storm.
Oh yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
I think a little bit different of a take on disaster. But this kind of goes into that where we're like I said before, disaster films wear a lot of different hats.
This is more of a character piece too.
It's a character piece, and it's a disaster based on decisions made by people. Right? It's a disaster that it's a natural occurring force on the high seas. Just it's storms, the perfect storm. Right? Just trying to do the accents.
You're a great skipper.
Yeah. Great. So you watch these guys as a crew, they're under this immense pressure. They're going to starve. They're going to fail. And they're like, we need to take the chance and go for it. Right. And if you've seen the movie, you understand what happens here. You know what happens. And I have to say, the last couple scenes of that movie too, when that ship capsizes, and they show that the shots of them kind of, the ship's it's capsized, and they're kind of just in the bowels of the ship, and the water's rising, and they're all just kind of looking at each other like, oh man, I didn't want to go like this. And that's how this movie ends, man. It's really it's a downer. It's a total bummer. Yeah. But it's a different take, I think, on the idea of and it's that thing. Okay, this is a disaster. There's a natural occurring thing that happens on the seas, but we just happen to be in the middle of it. We put ourselves in the middle of it. So we created this disaster in our lives and essentially ended our lives.
It's a sad movie.
It's a very sad movie. It is a very sad movie. George Clooney's great. I love him in this flick. I think he's just totally awesome. I love watching this movie. And one of the new kids is in that too. I forgot what's his name. Mark Wahlberg, Donnie Wahlberg. Is that Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah, he wasn't one of the new kids though. But
Donnie
yeah,
wasn't.
Well, Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark. Marky Mark.
That's his brother.
That's his brother. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. The more you know. All right, great. So yeah, perfect.
That's important stuff.
That's important stuff. Yeah. Perfect Storm. Really cool flick. What about you, Mara?
Okay, I'm going to take us back into sci-fi. Night of the Comet.
Dude.
Yeah.
You guys seen that one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, I love that movie. It's aesthetically perfect to me. Music, fashions, the look of it is so 80s. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a character study like we're talking about, but I mean, you get to know the characters and how they relate and their relationships and everything, and about the two sisters. And, it's really cool. And the thing that I think is really unique about it is we have the disaster, which is this comet, and no one's taking it seriously, but then everyone gets turned into red dust, or they get weird
zombie things with funny eyes.
And the actual scary part though are the scientists who got exposed just a little bit, and they're trying to take the survivors and essentially kill them for their life force.
The thing about that movie made you think about what you'd do if you were one of the only survivors from a global catastrophe. And what would be the first thing that I would do? I'd go to the mall.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's like my favorite scene of any movie too.
I'd go to the mall and try on dresses.
And then it's like
I want to.
I would too.
And then that's my favorite scene because that's what I want to do. And then the Stock Boys are like a gang.
Yeah.
And the guy's got like all these brooches, like they're like generals
yeah.
buttons or pins or medals, whatever, and it's good. And I just love that it's the end of the world, and here we have like this like 18-year-old girl who just like plays video games.
Yeah.
And like wants to talk about comic books, and her cheerleader sister.
In the video game elements, what ties that movie up real nice too. At the end, if I remember correctly, because she's trying to beat a high score on, and I haven't seen the movie in years, but she's trying to beat a high score, and it's some, you have the three characters, the initials, and who the hell's this guy? Who is this, or guy or gal, whoever? Who is this person that keeps beating me? And then at the end, that's when he
drives up in the car and picks up her sister,
and then the license plate is the initials. I thought that was a really cool.
I know, I loved that.
Going back to the mall scene though, that was one of the most impressionable scenes, obviously for you too. They're walking around the mall and they're trying on jewelry and they're putting on dresses, and they got the great 80s music in the background as they're having fun, like montaging everywhere.
It's a horrible cover of Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Is that what it was?
Which I was like, okay, they couldn't afford to get the original recording.
Yeah, it doesn't
just
make
the
any
performance
sense.
fee.
But those guys go on the PA, the gang, and they're like, attention shoppers or whatever. And they're like,
yeah,
fuck, man, I thought we were letting people here. Are you going to pay for all that stuff? Something like that. And that's when they start getting chased around by the maniacs. Yeah, that was a fun flick.
Yeah.
That was one of those, that was like an HBO flick that would be on all the time. And it made me think about, like, what the hell am I going to do if I'm one of 20 people on the planet? What do you do? Well, yeah.
I'm going to Best Buy, yo.
I'm going to go.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I guess I'm going to go have fun with that.
You're going to go try on fur coats.
Yeah. I mean, forget the whole food, water, shelter thing.
I'm raiding a porn store.
Coat. Yeah. I'm going to raid a porn store. I've always wanted
all the lube I could ever want.
Fill up a full with lube. Jump in.
Yeah.
Hell, why not?
I'm glad that was like your priority, Chris, if the world ends.
Hell yeah, dude.
All the porn I could ever watch. It's all.
Oh my God.
You're going to put it in a big mountain in front of a house. Just
well, shit, you're lonely. What the?
Yeah, exactly. Blow up sheep. Yes.
Jesus Christ, dude. Is my mom still watching?
No, your mom said she's going to watch Hoarders. She was like, "Why don't you check you guys out? I'll see you later."
She knew what this was gonna.
She's like, "Hoarders is on."
Into.
I can talk filthy again.
Yeah.
Crap. Okay, mom's going. Guys, bring the keg back out. Let's party. Anyways, so that movie was the shit. I love Night of the Comet. That was such a cool flick.
And it's got the Star Trek connection because Chakotay's in it.
Yeah.
Young Chakotay.
Yep. And that was the people that survived. I remember. The reason they survived is because they were in rooms that were encased in steel.
Yes.
So the two were fucking in that room. They were getting it on, and they woke up the next morning, and that's when they came out. And they're like, "Oh, what's going on? What's this dust everywhere? What's going on here? I'm gonna go there and knock it out."
And then the boyfriend got killed instantly.
How'd he get killed? I forgot now.
One of the zombie guys got him.
Okay.
Like as soon as he walked outside.
Zombie bastards.
Yeah.
That was a great flick.
Yeah.
God, that takes me back. That was fun.
It's like so good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Aesthetically perfect.
Yes, I agree.
The next one I'm going to bring up has an awesome soundtrack that features a couple songs from Van Halen, which are both phenomenal.
I'm still
Twister.
Oh. Okay. Go for it.
Who doesn't like Twister?
I fell asleep.
Really? I've seen this movie so many times. When this came out, this was like on repeat for me.
Was Twister? I think I saw it once. And see, that's the problem. Some of these movies, they all just kind of.
Yeah.
It's the one with Bill Paxton.
Okay,
and Helen Hunt. And they're like tornado people.
That's the one. They're storm chasers.
Yeah,
okay,
storm chasers.
Right,
yeah. So I guess not really a total disaster movie, but shit gets fucked up in this movie.
Yeah,
It's a disaster for those people.
Yeah, it's a disaster for those people. I just really like the interplay between Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Well, it's Bill Paxton.
They seem like really natural together in that movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman was in this movie too. The cast was just great.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like a Van Halen fan, unfortunately. So I did like the soundtrack in this movie.
Unfortunate about that, Dan.
Yeah. But anyways, Yeah, Twister was really cool, and I really like the fear tactics of the movie. When the shit starts to go down and they have to hide in, the friend's house is going to get taken away by the tornado, and when her dad dies and all that stuff, there's a lot of tension.
Well, it's another movie. It's another movie too. To me, at least, the weather stars in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about The Day After Tomorrow, where the weather kind of stars in the movie. That's the same idea here too.
Yeah,
I mean, this is this ominous character that's floating around causing destruction.
The antagonist is not a person.
No, it's the weather.
Yeah,
it's simply the weather. It's a force of nature. To me, that's what makes, again, I can't stress that enough with these type of disaster movies in life. It makes you realize that the grand character in all this will always be nature, whatever form it may be.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of that.
The thing that really strikes me about this movie too is that it's something that can actually happen, and it does happen all the time.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like when there is that realism to it. Mm-hmm. And this is something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
well,
Twister.
Let me ask you concerning Twister.
Okay.
And this is for you too, Mara. I mean, because like volcanoes
mm-hmm.
and tornadoes, when I was growing up as a kid, these things scared the living daylights out of me when I was a child. The idea of a funnel cloud that could literally come over and rip. Let's ask our friends in Louisiana right now, or not Louisiana, Alabama right now, about that, right? I mean, you see that type of destruction that these things can cause. That stuff scared the living daylights out of me when I was a child. Volcanoes scared the living daylights out of me when I was a child. The thought of having hot lava, like the idea of hot lava, like molten rock running down.
Yeah.
That idea it still kind of gives me the chills, and it's a real thing. It's not a ghost. Mm-hmm. It's not some alien.
Right.
It's a real thing that happens on a daily basis.
An actual tangible thing that can happen to you.
Yeah, it can. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're going to be Han Solo in the carbon thing.
Hell yeah.
But it's going to be rock. I mean, this shit happens for real.
Yeah.
That to me is terrifying, right? Natural things like that in Earth. Is it my turn? Whose turn is it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw one out that that'll illustrate this idea even more, but on a more sci-fi level. Remember The Core from 2003?
Yeah. Yep.
The corny movie. It was
You got to suspend all disbelief for this movie.
You do. Because that movie gets so into the unbelievable.
What's this one about? I don't know if I saw this.
This has Hilary Swank in it, and Aaron Eckhart. And they are basically using like a space shuttle. It's a ship. They're traveling to the Earth's core to restart it. Correct?
Yeah. I think they said it either.
Doesn't sound very
familiar. It was cooling down. I think they said the Earth's core was cooling down, so they had to reignite it, or the planet was going to freeze and they were all going to die.
So basically, very similar to Armageddon.
Same idea, but we're staying on the planet. We're going in the planet.
Yeah.
What makes this movie so damn surreal is the vehicle they use. I mean, they have to bore all the way through down to the center of the Earth, through every crust, iron plates, all the natural elements that make up this beautiful planet we live on. And, when they first start, it's like, okay, we're going to start drilling, and it's just, they're basically in a centrifugal drill.
Yeah.
On the outside, they're inside this thing, which that idea is pretty sweet. I think it's a cool idea. What makes the movie so surreal, though, is over time, I mean, it's like they're traveling through water or they're traveling through air. Like they're boring through rock so fast. And that's what makes when you put yourself into that situation or try to understand that, you're like, this is really bizarre. This is really weird. But it's a cool movie. And it's a potential disaster. The idea is if we don't fix this, like Armageddon,
then we're facing the disaster.
We're facing extinction as a people, as a planet, as a race. The planet's not going anywhere. We're going to go. That's what this whole thing's about. 9 times out of 10, the planet's still going to be here. It'll be fine. It's just we're going to be going away. So yeah, The Core. Yeah, it's a fun flick. I got a kick out of it. It's geeky. It's nerdy, and you have to suspend any type of like logic to really I'm having a ball here. Cool flick though. I enjoyed it. I don't really have much.
We should start that project tonight. Let's start drilling to the core.
Would you ever think about when I was a little kid? There was that idea. Like I used to read books when I was a kid. See this stuff, all these like this Earth stuff. I don't know why, but it just churns up all this stuff. Like I thought, when you're a kid, you always had that idea. Like I can dig to China. Look, all I gotta do is get a shovel and go in the backyard, and if I keep digging,
I'll get to China.
I'm gonna end up in China. Because the book I had here from the elementary school library says I can do it.
You can do anything you want. You can be whatever you want to be.
So I'd go there. I would be in the backyard digging, and I'd get about maybe a foot down, and my dad would be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Digging to China.
I'm digging to China. Dude, we were kidding around. Get your ass back in the house and put on the Atari or something. Jeez, Pete, what's wrong with you? Well, you told me to go outside. No, go inside now. You're causing damage out here. I mean, but it's just all these little things, like this Earth stuff, like all this. I don't know, just my mind running all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's this stuff. Fuck you guys. Going home.
I got an Earth one, and one Earth one on my list.
Okay.
Is Avalanche.
I never saw that.
Yeah.
What's it about?
I don't know.
This one's about a volcano, ironically. No. Avalanche at a ski resort.
Yeah.
Starring Rock Hudson and Mia Farrow and Robert Forster, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, there is a Mystery Science Theater episode on this. Probably watch it on that. But it's good for its just sheer audacity.
Yeah, it's kind of corny, but
it's just audacious.
Yeah.
I mean, Rock Hudson's running around. He's kind of a dick. And the whole time this avalanche is going to happen, or I think it did, and everyone's kind of trapped in different places around the resort, and he keeps trying to go to lunch with people. It's funny. It's funny. But it is scary though, because it's like avalanches is one of those Earth things like you're talking about.
It's like freaky.
I don't want to even go skiing or to a ski resort because something like that.
Yeah.
Shit.
Well, there's been a couple of these, you get these found footage videos people have or stuff that people have filmed. Mm-hmm. There's literally that one with the guy who was skiing. And this is real. The guy tripped something going down this massive ski hill, and he's like literally doing what you've seen in the movies. He's got an avalanche on his ass, and you're watching the whole thing coming down as he's skiing down. I'm like, oh my God. That would be the freak. I mean, to live through that and come out the other end of that, hopefully. I mean, an avalanche, it's just snow. Huh, yeah.
Nope.
I think people, and that's what my thought process with a lot of these movies is I think as you get older, we take for granted the power of nature, how powerful snow can be, how powerful weather can be, how powerful a pimple on the earth, a volcano, can be. Mm-hmm. That's what they basically are, right? I think people take that for granted because it's like, well, it can't happen to me, right? It's not going to happen to me. But Christ, just around here, sinkholes.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
See, we're having sinkholes all the time. You imagine you're sitting there in your living room.
And you're just sucked up.
It just boom. It's happened.
It's scary.
It's freaky.
That's why I this is the only like Earth one I had or natural disaster on my list because I would rather watch something like Night of the Comet because it's like that's so fantastic.
It's so fantastical, yeah.
That I want to just go slip into the world of pretending I'm, me and a couple other people, a few people that I like are the only people left and we're at the mall,
Yeah.
Like I don't want to think about freezing to death under a pile of snow, it's like it's too much for me.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I got a couple I'm thinking about here.
I'll throw them down.
Titanic.
All right. It's on my list, too.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a disaster.
It's a total disaster of, a different type.
Yeah.
But, I stand by this movie. This is actually a really good movie. A lot of people rip on it now. Like, it's not that great. It's this, it's that. If you set the romance part aside.
Yeah.
It's actually it's a fantastic movie, and I think, a really good disaster movie, it kind of catches the human struggle, endurance, trying to survive against all costs.
Yeah.
And this movie captures that.
Mm-hmm. This movie,
totally.
I think I mentioned this on the previous show that I just watched this movie like maybe a year and a half ago. I had not, because I was so annoyed when it came out. Because there was like, oh my God,
it became a pop culture.
Shit happened 100 years ago, dude. Yeah. It's not like it just happened last week.
Well, but think about it. There's a lot of the uneducated masses out there that, saw this pop culture phenomenon to latch onto.
And that's what annoyed me.
They didn't really realize that, like, this is a true story. This really happened. These people really died. Mm-hmm. Yes. And this is a fictional take on that.
Yeah.
But many of the things that happened in Titanic actually happened in real life.
Oh, for real.
So that's
the grand staircase.
That, like you were saying, this is stuff you don't want to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real disaster.
You don't want to think about
that.
It's
terrifying.
Scary. It's really scary when I just remember so vividly how the ship sank, like just being completely perpendicular. And
what happened was, because this is another, you mentioned Titanic, here we go down the rabbit hole. For a couple of years, like this, not too long ago, I went down a nasty rabbit hole of studying the Titanic, not the movie, studying all like
the actual.
I read a pile of books.
You shouldn't have let
it.
that happen.
I know. I read a pile of books on it, and accounts from people who survived and whatnot. And there's actually a really great YouTube video you can watch where they actually do have an actual to scale, well, not to scale, but actual like time of how they showed, they show the thing actually hit. It would take about 2.5, 3 hours for it to completely come, go underwater. And they actually show, and the ship actually does break in half. It back breaks, literally the key.
Yeah.
It breaks. So the bow goes down first, and then the stern gets dragged behind it, right? It's a bit boring for a while because it's just kind of sitting there, kind of just sinking slowly and slowly and slowly. And then all of a sudden it's back breaks. But when you get into studying the Titanic, and it ties right in with this movie though too, because they did really, James Cameron really did show the scale of how big this ship was. And I mean, people who built that thing, people who were children, they're like, oh, I remember walking up to that thing, and it's like it just didn't end. This thing just was in the sky. It was so huge. And to me, the idea of the Titanic as a structure, a floating structure, to me, it's just like, how do you put something that huge into a body of water and have it float?
Yeah.
Right.
And have parties on it and have people walking around on it and having fun and playing games and doing all this stuff like they're standing on the ground.
I mean, it's
amazing to me.
It was a huge... I mean, just
the city on
the scope of building that thing.
Yeah,
but I mean, they were cocky as hell.
People died
with that thing.
People died.
Yeah,
we could do 4 shows that people don't want to hear
about the Titanic.
I could go through all this insanity.
Back to the movie.
Yeah,
James Cameron studied the hell out of this stuff. He's really into this. I mean, he made those other movies, Ghosts of the Abyss.
Yep.
The documentaries, right?
Yeah, which was really cool too.
Really cool.
But yeah, the Titanic, it still holds up really well today. When you watch that movie, some of the visuals are a little sketchy. And again,
people are falling when the thing. When the stern comes up, I think it's a stern.
At the time, though, that was state of the art, man. That was really impressive.
Oh yeah,
we'll just fall.
All the people to show all the population.
Yeah,
well, you can tell they're CGI now, little tiny people, but at the time it was.
So
what I think James Cameron really left, the impression he left on me with that is going back to what I said. You think of this, they defined the Titanic unsinkable for a lot of technical reasons we won't go into. It was designed in a way where it was unsinkable, and to think about something that massive,
prove them wrong,
and how the ocean could just swallow it right up like nothing. And something that massive to us, that magnitude, that scale, and how the ocean can just, it's gone.
Yeah,
a couple hours.
Yeah,
nothing left. It's at the bottom of the ocean now. It's a graveyard. So that movie is, to me, at least it really hits home. That is one hell of a disaster, a naval disaster. It's not a force of nature. It's a naval disaster, and it's not different. There's thousands upon thousands of naval disasters that have happened in history, and there's books and books and books on stuff like that. But yeah, I'm with you right on that, Chris. That's Titanic is up there, man. And like I said, I only saw it about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Finally sat down and watched it. Got myself out of the hipster mentality and said, okay, I'm gonna watch this movie now. And I really enjoyed it. It's you remove a lot like Armageddon. You remove the corny elements, the gushy, mushy elements. There's some really cool stuff to watch there. What the hell do I have here? Oh boy, I have a short list this week. Ooh. We haven't really talked about flight disasters yet.
No.
Alive.
Oh, God.
1993.
Did you see this one, Mara?
I know I have. I know all about it, but I haven't seen it. No.
Game changer.
Gotta eat the ass.
Gotta eat the ass. Yeah. You gotta eat the ass. You gotta eat the ass.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which they do show.
Which they do.
It's really. Did they have to do that?
Anybody care for a sandwich? Yes. How about some ass?
You want an ass sandwich?
I like ass sandwich.
You want an ass sandwich? An ass
so is it the whole movie? They're just cutting through
it's
the
2 hours.
ass?
Yeah. It's 2 hours of these guys with an ass. There's a lot of asses on here. No, it's about a flight disaster.
Right.
What the hell is a plane disaster? What do they call it? It's a plane disaster.
Yeah.
And it's about this group. I saw it in the theater. I think I may have rented it one time, but when it came out, this was like a big deal.
Oh, it really was.
Because
I remember that.
of
based on a book,
the cannibalism aspect. Yeah. Because cannibalism, it's been always, I think in Hollywood, it's always been something that it's been this fantastical thing, that only crazy people. It's a horror element and all these things. This is the first time I remember with a movie where the idea of cannibalism, it's something, and this is based on a true story. I know we hear that all the time, but this was based on a true account.
Yeah.
These people had to do this to survive. Mm-hmm. They had no other choice. And there's a scene in the movie when like they're talking about it and they decide, okay, we're going to do it. And these corpses are frozen.
Yeah.
These dead corpses all over the place from the accident. And I think one of them took a knife out.
Yeah, and just kind of cut a little piece off.
But they said, they're like, okay, you guys realize
this changes
everything if we do this. Mm-hmm. It's a fucked movie. It's like a 2 hour movie. It don't feel like 2 hours for you'd think that people laying around in the snow for it was like 40 days or something like that would be not very exciting, but they made it work. And there was an avalanche in that movie also too.
Mm-hmm. I gotta watch it.
It's a trip.
That one has been on my list since.
It's a trip, and I haven't. It's been a long 93. Time. Yeah, Alive is it's.
But I'm gonna watch it when it gets warmer.
Yeah, good idea. Get you out of that.
Yeah,
that
I want to be able to go outside and get the sun on me when it ends and not be in the
yeah.
Cold, dark.
That's
after having a nice frigid ass sandwich.
Sandwich. Then
I'll get myself a ass sandwich.
ass sandwich.
Movies about survival, though. You used to be a vegetarian, no more.
It's a survival movie, though. These guys had to do what they had to do to survive out there.
Yeah.
They do show like the after scenes with these people, and they weren't right. Of course, they weren't right. The one guy you could tell, the way they portrayed him at least was, this changes everything. You're not going to be the same. If you want to survive this, you're going to come out the other end of this thing a different person, and it may not be for the better. That's a decision you have to make.
Yeah.
It's a heavy idea. And, that idea, because I remember when we were, 1993, literally, I'm fresh out of high school.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're going to eat the ass. And we're like, we're going to watch ass. It's going to be so hilarious. Then I watched it. I'm like,
they had to do it.
This is serious, man. This is no joke.
Yeah.
All right, Mara, it's your turn. Give us a movie.
All right, I'm taking us back into Fun Town here.
Fun Town.
I'm going with Mars Attacks.
Oh, dude.
Yes. Which, alien invasion, but I think it goes under our disaster movie criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, the aliens are coming and everyone's kind of banding together. I always kind of think of a disaster movie as like there's a group of people here, there's a group of people there, and they're here, and they're going to either come together or they're not, and they're all kind of doing their own thing to survive. And that's what happens in Mars Attacks, essentially.
It is more of a lighter take on things.
Yeah, it's very light, great effects.
Yeah, they look great. It sounds like and I've only seen it once, so I'm not like an expert on
I'm not like, I don't know if I heard either, but
yeah. It's more of a lighthearted take on things.
It is. It's your typical, it's probably one of Tim Burton's like least popular ones, especially from the 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
Probably the beginning of the end of his
like really positive run that he had going there.
Yeah.
I think with Mars Attacks, people didn't know what to expect with it.
Right.
It didn't do very well when it came out either. But this kind of came at the tail end of like Independence Day and all of that. So I think it kind of struggled because of that too, because it was such dark comedy in Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
But the Martians do destroy a lot of stuff in that movie.
Yeah.
It is quite disastrous.
They do.
And Jack Nicholson was in this.
As the president.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
He's great.
He's always great. But he's retired now, so.
Well, he's old. He had a good run.
Chris, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go with one that we actually talked about before. And this is another one that just kind of ends everything. The Day After.
God, I don't think, have I seen that?
The Day After?
My God.
We talked about this on the Armageddon show that we did a while ago. But basically, it's, the U.S. under nuclear attack and basically the people trying to survive. And the entire movie is the radiation poisoning and the cattle dying and everything around them dying and basically them just trying to make it through.
I know. I've had to see that.
We all saw it because when we were kids in the 80s,
Threads.
You're thinking of Threads, but The Day After is a different movie. But they came out around the same time.
Yeah, Threads. That's the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah,
and that's just fucking bleakness, man.
But Threads was the UK.
Yeah, that was the UK
nuclear attack.
And it was
movie.
just bleak.
Yeah, The Day After is the same way. It's a very hard watch.
Yeah,
I remember watching this with my.
There's nothing there to like.
There's nothing. Hope. There's nothing redeeming about this movie. Hence, total disaster.
Yeah,
it's about basically the end of mankind and whatever they can do, their struggle to survive. Very dark, very depressing. Jason Robards was in this.
Yeah.
Steve Guttenberg was in this. So a lot of those, mainstays in the 80s in a TV movie. And, at this point, we knew Guttenberg because of doing movies like Short Circuit and Police Academy. He was always doing comedic roles.
Yeah.
And then this was his first, real dramatic thing.
Yeah.
Really kind of off-putting.
Yeah.
To see somebody like that put into, the world's ending. You're all going to die. But, yeah, The Day After... That was all
remember.
The
80s shit too. Like the 80s stuff was all the nuclear scares, and Threads and The Day After were two movies that fit right into that. Threads was horrible. I mean, we can just throw that down too. We've talked about that. I think we mentioned Threads on the Apocalypse show.
Yeah, we did that whole Apocalypse show.
And that's just Threads is horrible to watch. And there's a reason that movie tops all the lists of like most disturbing films ever made. And it wasn't a movie, I don't think, that was made to be disturbing for disturbing's sake. It was trying to portray what the hell would happen if there was a nuclear disaster. And you just see, like in Threads at least, for me, you see this progression of things getting worse and worse. You have rooms of people underground in bunkers trying to, figure out things and try to solve problems. And then a month later, you go down there and they're all dead.
Yeah.
They're just dead. They're just sitting at them same desks, but now they're covered in dust and they're rotting. And it's the most bleak, horrible thing. Those movies, Threads really for me is one of the worst things I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just so foggy.
It's like a Godsmack concert.
I think Michelle's supposed to give me a copy of that too. That's bleak. That's bleak. I don't know. I think I'd rather get bombed.
Yeah, me too.
During the Godsmack concert.
Yeah, at the concert.
Fuck this, kill me. So,
sorry, Godsmack fans. I heard their new song on the radio today, and I just
they have a new song.
Yeah, they're fucking terrible.
All respect to their drummer Shannon Larkin. The guy's a killer. drummer.
Yeah, Shannon
killer
Larkin's
drummer,
great.
and he found his money gig, and good for him. I'm glad he's making a living.
Yeah.
But the band sucks. Anyways, moving on. So here's another I was thinking about. I put this on my list. It's a newer film, but I put this on my list because I thought this was a different take on the idea of a disaster film. And the movie, it's Life from 2017. We both love that movie.
Dude, I love that movie.
I love Life. I love Life.
Have you seen Life?
No.
Great
What's
sci-fi.
This is basically, it's the best alien movie.
Yeah, that's what you said.
It's like better than
well, it came
like
out right around the
last
same
couple.
time as Covenant.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is a better alien movie
Yeah.
than the alien movie that came out.
Yeah, if you like the original Alien movies,
Yeah,
you'll
it's the
dig
same
Life.
feel.
It's really good.
Simply put, and I don't want to, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to kill you with this, but the way this movie ends, this is the idea that, and we've seen this, with other movies too, like, oh, we thought we saved the day. We thought we're good, everything's okay. And then you realize at the last second, like, no, it's all over with, man. You know what I'm saying, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just I don't want to beat up. I don't want Mar to get messed up with this, but you see the reveal and you're like, oh shit, it's over. It's over.
Game over, man.
Same idea, but I hate to mention Annihilation again, but it's the same idea with Annihilation. You see the end of Annihilation, you're like, you thought it's no.
Yeah, you thought it was going one way and it's going another,
and it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a global disaster.
Yeah,
it's coming. That's what you're left with.
Yeah.
It's a downer, right? And that's really simply put, and Life's really cool. It's just a cool flick to watch. Mm-hmm. It's a heavy movie.
The visuals for the alien in this are really sweet. Yes.
It's a great looking flick. Yeah.
And it's Jake Gyllenhaal again. Donnie Darko is everywhere tonight.
Donnie Darko is just taking over all that shit.
Taking over the world, Donnie.
So yeah, that's a great flick too. What about you, Mara? What else you got?
All right, this is very fits in with the rest of the movies I've been talking about, and it's kind of loose, and that's why I left it. Well, it's not my last, but one of my last.
I was going to make a comment, but I didn't.
I think we both were ready to jump on that one. We were both like, okay, shut up. We canceled it out.
Whatever. Anyway, Slither.
Dude.
2006.
Yeah.
And I like this one because it kind of blends a lot of different types of movies, and it's I think it plays homage to a lot of stuff before it, but it's got the whole idea of a crashed meteor, so it's like this alien thing.
Yeah.
But it's also like a disease or something kind of biological that incubates inside people, and then they pass it around to one another. So it's a little bit of like a biological thing too.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah,
I don't think we've got into the biological.
There's quite a few. biological.
Oh yeah,
like virus type.
28 days later.
Yeah,
that one. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's one. That's a good.
And
example.
it's like they kind of go into like zombie territory a little bit, but I don't think Slither does. I mean, they're not really zombies. They're more...
No, but it's a force that's coming through and creating it's creating this disaster.
Yeah.
So the star of the film for that, to me at least, is that virus.
Yes,
that biological
totally.
agent. These
like red little slug things. They're so gross.
Yeah.
And that movie is extremely gory. There's so much blood in it. It's so good. It makes you can't eat during it. It'll make you gag. And I love movies. Like those are always my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And I saw that one at the theater. I fucking loved it. I had such a good time seeing that one, and I was reading about it as I was preparing for this podcast tonight, and I guess it kind of failed at the box office that year. And
yeah, it didn't do very well.
I was like, I wasn't too surprised because when I was like thinking about it and thinking about 2006 and when I saw it, I remember thinking like, wow, I did not expect to see this movie.
Yeah.
Like the tone of it is really silly. It's very, like I said, I think it pulls a lot from other like kind of B movies, sci-fi.
Well, it's a James Gunn movie too.
Yeah.
Which he always does that.
Yeah.
And it's very like it's got that like really a lot of comedy in it, and people just weren't doing that in the mid-aughts. You didn't see some stuff like that. So
it wasn't too self-serious.
Yeah. So I think that I went in, saw it, was very shocked at what I was seeing, and I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I loved it. I could see the opposite reaction, going in and being like, what the hell am I watching? I was not expecting to see something so tongue-in-cheek and campy. But, I mean, the acting's good. Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks.
She's always amazing.
Yeah. I really enjoy that they got her And she's a dynamic character, and she wasn't just like the blonde girl to be Nathan Fillion's like love interest or whatever.
Yeah.
She holds her own. She's like a good character. And she's good enough. She plays everything really good too.
Yeah.
Great character actress.
Very cool. There's some other angles. I didn't write these down because I didn't. But I mean, I'm just thinking about other different ideas when it comes to disaster. We didn't really get in. I mean, yeah, we could talk about Noah, biblical disaster type stuff, which is a cool flick. I enjoyed that. But there are other ideas, like one of my all-time favorite movies is the Seventh Sign. The Seventh Sign. Yeah. What's her name?
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore. Thank you. It's another one of those ideas, like avoiding a disaster, right? Like, we were talking about Armageddon and stuff like that.
Trying to change things so a disaster doesn't happen.
Yeah, and there's that movie kind of goes into that, like, it's the idea of the guff in heaven. Like, the guff is empty. We need to fill it, so we have to fucking wipe all you fuckers out,
Right.
There's those ideas, like with disaster films too. Like, we could have extinction on a biblical type of extinction. And I know that's not everybody's gig, but I think that's another interesting take on this idea.
I think
of
the
disaster.
whole premise of disaster, there's a very wide margin of what fits into it.
So many hats. It's why when you mention this, I'm like, this is going to be a weird one to tackle, because the problem with fucking movies is they just wear a lot of hats, it seems like.
Yeah.
As cinema, carries on, movies just they hybrid and hybrid and hybrid. Art just does that.
Yeah, we expand on genre, we parody them, we revise them, we mishmatch them up.
Yeah,
we got to.
And that's great.
Now.
That's those juxtapositions and blending things and blending ideas and whatnot. It's funny. I was watching a documentary on, and it illustrates this idea. I was watching a documentary this morning at the gym on video games, on graphics specifically, graphics in video games and how they've evolved, over the last 50 years. And I didn't realize how many different styles of graphics and how many different ideas people have had to make things move certain ways. And as if you don't think about that stuff, you don't really understand it. You don't appreciate it. This thing kind of highlighted all that, and they're like, nowadays we have people, independent, people who do graphics, like these these small houses, and they blend all these different ideas together, and they make these insanely cool looking games. Yeah. But they're just blending all these different styles, like vector and raster, and that's the old school stuff. 3D emulation and all these crazy things they were doing. They blend all these ideas, so that's the same type of thing. I think what made this, especially this topic, challenging is that disaster movies can be masked with so many different other genre types too, and it's tough to put your finger on there. But I think we did a pretty. I think we hit the good ones, the ones that you really need to see. I think.
Two we didn't mention though.
Well, mention them, yeah.
1972. The Poseidon Adventure.
The Poseidon Adventure is a mainstay.
That is a really good character-driven study. It really gets to the core of survival and people working as a team to try and survive. And then, of course, some fall off and some can't last as long as the others, and it's really sad. Like Shelley Winter's character in that movie, she's I hate to say it, but she's kind of a sad sack in this movie, but you really kind of sympathize with her trying to escape with people that are more physically fit than her.
Yeah.
You get this different, varied group of different characterizations all locked in one place, and seeing them work together is really interesting. Kind of a really good dynamic between all of them. And Gene Hackman,
fantastic.
I mean, that guy could do no wrong either. So we have Poseidon Adventure in 72, and another one that I think kind of defines the core ideals of the disaster movie is, of course, the classic 1974 film, The Towering Inferno.
Towering Inferno.
Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, that one kind of hits the nail on the head too. But again, at varying degrees with everything.
I want to take us off script for a second. I just realized something. I'm sorry to do this, but we were talking about suggested viewing earlier.
Yeah.
And I realized I did watch something, and I want to throw it out there because I think it's super
cool.
I think it's really important.
Up anyways.
I think Blake actually mentioned this on our board. 3 Identical Strangers.
Oh, okay. I've not seen that.
About
it was Josie that mentioned that.
Was it Josie?
Yeah.
Thank you, Josie. You know what? No, and I was talking to them about it. I think I said I'm going to watch it. And I did watch it. And, man, if you have not seen this, sit down and watch it. It's a disturbing account. It's crazy.
Oh, wait, I think I did see
But
she posted about that.
The three identical twins. I'm sorry I take us so far off the thing. I know, but
I don't care.
But I just realized that towards the end here. Yeah, it's one, and you can watch it on Hulu. It's on Hulu if you have a Hulu subscription. It's there for the taking.
Mara is a writing fool tonight.
Mara is
because
taking
the past few weeks everyone's recommended stuff, and I forgot it all. So I'm like, I'm bringing my pen this week.
It's a way to do it.
So yeah, I'm sorry to take us off script here, but
that's cool.
I wanted to mention that's a fantastic documentary. If you have a Hulu account, get in there and watch it. It's an hour and a half. It's not a huge investment of time. But it's definitely worth the time.
I've heard nothing but good things about that one.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
So do we have any more we want to throw out there? Or you guys ready to wrap this up?
I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
It's not a movie. It's a episode of a TV show, but it's the Star Trek Next Generation episode Disaster, because it's very framed on like a disaster movie.
Yeah.
And I think like the power goes out and they're stuck in an elevator. Some people are stuck in an elevator with Picard.
Yeah.
And then like Troy is on the bridge and she has to take command for the first time, and
oh god,
she's kind of pathetic and she has to
feel like
learn.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
Nope. Go ahead.
She is. She's like, oh, I've never taken command before, and they're like, you got to step up.
You're the senior officer.
Yeah.
Get your ass up there in the chair.
You thought you were tough? Prove it.
Well, it seems like there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot of, with Star Trek, especially Next Generation.
There is
a lot of disaster.
There is
near misses
but
they have.
This is like the one though that like really gets me to think of like all the movies we were talking about, and especially with the whole segment with Picard and the kids being stuck on the elevator because he hates kids.
Yeah,
they're all like worshiping him for Picard Day.
Yeah,
and then he kind of like, he's like, okay, you're my crew members now, and we're gonna get out of here. And
well, he persevered through that. He had to adjust.
I think he hurt his leg too, so he had to like depend on.
I haven't seen that I haven't watched that one in a long time.
Yeah, that's probably. I mean,
watch that episode now.
Every episode I talk about, I'm gonna say is one of my favorites, but that's one of my favorites.
Star Trek.
It's Star Trek.
It fucking rules. You can't touch that.
But that was like the first thing I thought of when we were disaster movies. I was like, disaster. The Next Generation episode, not a movie.
Hell yeah. Well, let's wrap this up.
Fun show.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of fun. A lot covered too.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can't say that enough. This topic is a tough one. It carries a lot of weight and it wears a lot of hats. So but I think we did a good job.
There's almost like a disaster film in every genre.
Yeah, totally. Oh no, if you go on, there's a Wikipedia page for disaster films.
Yeah.
And I was like,
oh my god.
Yeah, hundreds.
Oh my god. It's a really
and they have it all broken down by type of disaster.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, folks, we'll be back next week, but I think we're going to have to do a different night next week. Episode 112, we're going to do our favorite movie soundtracks. Not scores, but soundtracks. Hell yeah.
That's going to be fun.
That'll be a lot of fun. So
we're going to be dancing the whole time. We're going to be sampling and
I'm going to be singing.
Hell yeah.
Shaking our butts. Shaking our butts in that camera right there. Just that thing. Just as long as you don't have to see me.
Tune in
next week. See ya.
Good night.
Visit us at www.themoviesleuth.com and find The Movie Sleuth on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and iTunes.